One of the things I really appreciate about this camera, a feature that I did not have on my previous Nikon point and shoot bridge camera, is the fact that it has the threading to take filters that are 67 millimeters. So if you have a 35 millimeter DSLR Nikon camera and you have filters that were designed for those type of lenses and there's 67 millimeters, one of the things that you can now do, which is one of what I've also done here, is that I've gotten a filter, an ND filter. It's a variable filter, so because the threading is 67 millimeters, I can simply screw that on. I can use this filter on this camera, but let's say I had a 35 millimeter DSLR from Nikon or any other DSLR that uses 67 millimeter threading or diameter, then I could also use these lenses. So I know some professional photographers, they might have a 35 millimeter DSLR that they use for, you know, real serious gigs that they need specialized lenses. But for someone who has a gig like, you know, like a graduation, something simple, a camera like this would suffice, and they could just take the correct filters and they could just use them on this camera as well as their professional 35 millimeter camera. And that's something I really like about this. So apart from this ND filter, and it has a wide range that I can choose from. If you look here, I can do the minimum, or I can go all the way to the maximum darkness on this filter. So with one variable ND filter, I can cover a wide range of photography options. Okay, so before I start talking about the zoom features for this camera, I'd just like to touch on one aspect that some people who bought the camera have mentioned. Even some of the online reviewers on YouTube have sort of complained about the fact that this screen is not a touch screen. And frankly, I prefer it that way, because if this is a screen that I'm going to be using to look at subjects, the last thing I want to be doing is putting my greasy fingers on the screen and swiping all over and smudging that screen. So I think it's a good thing that the screen is not a touch screen, and I think Nikon was smart in doing it that way. If I need to change anything, I just press this menu button and I just navigate and do what I need to do. I don't want to have to be, you know, smudging the screen that I'm using as a viewfinder to look at my subjects. Also, when you lift it, if I decide to use the viewfinder, let's say in a situation where the sun is very bright and it's not allowing me to see this big screen properly and I need to put this viewfinder up close to my eye, the last thing I want to be doing is touching that touch screen with my face by accident and, you know, changing an important setting while I'm trying to get a shot. So I think it's actually a good thing that this screen is not a touch screen, and a few changes that you have to make, the buttons are here anyway. So I don't think that's a valid argument from the people who are, you know, making those complaints online. But moving on to the core of what this video is all about, the zoom on this camera. And the zoom on this camera is just absolutely amazing. You can just go so far out and view a number of things. And one of the things that I really like about this Nikon, it has this really wonderful feature. Right here, you can also zoom in and out. So, see that? You can also zoom in and out with this button right here. So you can do it here also, but while you're priming because this is your shutter release button, and if your finger is getting ready to take a shot because you're filming wildlife or whatever, you can keep your finger on this button and then you can just do the zoom using this button here. But another feature that I also really like is this button right here. Sometimes when you zoom all the way in on a subject and you take a shot, then the camera might move slightly, especially if you're not using a tripod, and then you lose a subject. Let's say it's a bird or some other type of wildlife. What this button does, let me adjust the camera so that we can get a better look. this button does is that if you lose your subject and you say, okay, what happened to my subject? Did it move? Maybe because, you know, as human beings, we're not like a tripod that we can hold the camera completely steady. So you might move as you're trying to take a picture. So if you lose your subject, here's what you do. You press this button right here, and then here's what happens. You press it, and it zooms out. Once you find your subject again, you release it, and it zooms back in, and you have your subject in focus. I think this is a really nice feature that Nikon has included, because then rather than moving your trigger finger, so to speak, you can always use a secondary button right here, and that will help you to find your subject and then take the picture again. A really nice feature. I really love this. The zoom on this bridge camera is a nature photographer's dream come true. Check out this location. Do you know where it is? If you do, comment below. I was on a boat dock looking at an island in the middle of a river about 500 feet away. I saw the sunlight shining on a long object and I wasn't sure what it was, so I decided to zoom in with my 950 and it turned out to be this. But if you think that's impressive, watch me zoom in even closer. Unfortunately, at maximum zoom, the image isn't that sharp at this distance. This is one of the reasons why I believe that Nikon should have put at least a 1-inch sensor in this camera, but we'll talk about that later. When you're doing nature photography, oftentimes you have very little time to respond, and so you just react to a sudden movement in the corner of your eye and you point your camera in that direction, hoping to find the subject, which by now has stopped moving. Here are a few examples of that. This guy was different though. He's not known for quick movements unless his prey is close. And here he is sitting patiently by a waterhole, waiting for some animal to come by to take a drink. I, however, was at a safe distance away on the boardwalk, so this selfie is not as dangerous as it looks. But with the Nikon P950 zoom lens, I was able to get up close and personal. As we headed back to the campsite, I really wanted to get a picture of something special, so I scanned the trees until my eyes caught something in the distance. I wasn't exactly sure of what I was seeing, so I allowed the P950 to do its work, and I was rewarded with this photo. Two days later, I jumped on my bike early in the morning and rode to this location on the overpass, right beside the Palm Beach International Airport. And for all the Karens and Kens watching this channel, before you decide to report me to Homeland Security, relax. There's a pedestrian walkway on this overpass. This yellow line, which is almost half a mile long, shows the distance covered in my next picture. I was here, and the vehicles were over there. The driver of this white van is so distracted by a cell phone conversation that he has drifted out of his lane. And the quality of the picture is so good that you can see clearly that the guy in the car in front of him is actually looking at his mirror as if to say, "What's wrong with this guy?" In the other lane, you can see this white car, which is coincidentally also a Honda Civic. And the quality of the picture is so good that I can clearly make out the passenger's face. You can even see that she wears glasses. The final picture is one I took at a local county park. Here you could barely make out a canoe far away from shore. However, with the help of the 83x zoom on the P950, I can clearly make out their faces, even at that distance. Eventually, they came back to shore and I introduced myself and we had a little conversation going. I told them I was taking pictures to make another video for my YouTube channel and they looked me up right away. I hope they subscribed and I hope you subscribe because I have a lot more videos coming out soon, including a music video. Stay tuned.